Urgent. The ceasefire between the United States and Iran, announced to last 2 weeks, was practically dead on arrival. And now you will understand perfectly why this is such a historic moment. This Thursday, April 9, 2026, what seemed to be an immediate relief turned into an unstable pause, surrounded by military threats, diplomatic disputes, and an open fight for control of the Strait of Hormuz. This is the center of the story. The agreement exists, but true peace does not exist yet. Here's what happened. Washington and Tehran accepted a temporary truce mediated by Pakistan with the promise of opening space for negotiations in Islamabad. At the center of this are Donald Trump, the Iranian government, the Pakistani mediators, and surrounding them Israel, Hezbollah, and the Gulf nations. When this was formalized, the rhetoric was about restraint. But where the crisis remains most dangerous is precisely in the most sensitive maritime corridor on the planet, through which a huge portion of the world's energy passes. How does this truce work? On paper, it suspends direct attacks for 2 weeks. In practice, everything depends on what will happen in Hormuz and at the negotiating tables. The harshest truth behind this ceasefire is simple. There was no normalization, there was an armed pause. The United States says that the agreement requires an open and secure strait. Iran, on the other hand, maintains that the passage remains under Iranian military control. This changes everything because it shows that the Iranian regime has not given up its main leverage. Instead of ending the crisis, it tries to turn the truce into an instrument of control. That's why the announcement did not completely eliminate global fear. And there's an explosive detail. Even after the announcement, the regional war intensified. It kept putting pressure on the agreement. The Associated Press reported that Israel launched devastating attacks in Beirut hours after the truce, with more than 200 dead. So why is this truce so frightening? Because it didn't close all the fronts. Lebanon remains in turmoil. Hezbollah is still part of the military equation, and any new attack could shatter the fragile balance in just a few hours. On the US side, the message was direct and strong. Trump stated that American ships, planes, and troops will remain positioned around Iran until the real agreement is fully implemented. And he went further. He warned that if Tehran fails, the attacks could resume even more forcefully. How should this be understood? As total pressure. Washington wants to turn the truce into a test of strategic obedience, mainly regarding Iran's nuclear program. The uranium stockpiles and the movement in Hormuz. Why? Because the White House doesn't just want a pause in the fighting. It wants to come out of this crisis with clear limits on Iranian firepower. In the market, the effect was immediate and revealed the size of the problem. Oil prices dropped sharply when the ceasefire was announced, with Brent falling to around $94 per barrel on Wednesday. But the confidence didn't last long. This Thursday, with doubts about the truce, attacks in Lebanon, and restrictions in Hormuz, the price per barrel went back to the $97 to $98 range. Another decisive point is that the shipping traffic is still far from normal. Reuters reported that few ships managed to cross the strait, and the Associated Press highlighted that hundreds of loaded vessels are waiting to pass. This shows how the situation remains stalled. Iran talks about a limited and temporary opening. The West demands freedom of navigation, and the market understands that as long as this dispute continues, the risk remains real. The truce, then, is not a finish line. It's a diplomatic minefield. In the end, the clearest reading is this. The so-called shocking truth of the ceasefire between the United States and Iran is not in the announcement, but in what it hides. The agreement did not bring lasting peace. It brought a short break, monitored, conditional, and full of threats. Whoever gained time won. Those who expected stability have not received it yet. And those who bet that the Middle East would enter a period of calm saw the opposite. A ceasefire that already began surrounded by distrust, with military forces on alert, Hormuz still under dispute, and negotiations that can move forward or fail at any moment. That's why the world remains tense, because this truce so far seems much more like a warning than a solution.